We join Beast as he is aware that Kraven is watching him, waiting for him to make a mistake and show some weakness. Determined not to make any more mistakes, he thinks of how they've been busy non-stop since they cured Xavier, as he recalls Kraven the Hunter wanting the most dangerous hunt of all time, while elsewhere, the rest of the X-Men are examining Avia while worried about Hank fighting by himself. The medical machine has trouble finding what's wrong with Avia, other than she's weak, as Iceman remembers Kraven telling them that he gave her a poison whose only antidote they can get if they give him what he wants. That he's tired of hunting Spider-Man and grown complacent, wanting to sharpen his skills against a new opponent. Reluctantly, Beast agreed to fight him so long as Avia gets the antidote regardless of the outcome, to which he agrees. Beast is having second thoughts about Kraven's promise as he falls into a pit that the hunter made and, barely saving himself, nearly falls victim to two more and realizes that the hunter must have been there for a while setting it all up. Swinging through the trees, he knows that his familiarity with the woods is being used against him when he lands on the ground and activates a spring net that catches him and sends him flying, as we turn to the man who made contact with Lorna. Wanting to know if it's time for their next move, the man named Tad is told to be patient as the group moves slowly forward with their plans. One woman, though, is curious as to whether Tad has fallen for Lorna, which he dismisses as a young boy named Simon, who we learn was born in 1945, wonders the same thing. The oldest of them tells him to forget his feelings for Lorna, for they cannot affect their plans for her, while telling him that everyone has only aged 1 week for every decade since joining them. Lorna is worried for Hank as Kraven has come close to killing Spider-Man many times when she hears a voice call her name, but when she asks, none of them said anything when Cyclops tells them to worry about that later and wants to know where Hank is. Jean has his location and tells them to get ready to help their friend. Beast managed to recover from the trap and notices that it's getting harder to think, which worries him. Turning to Kraven, he reveals that while monitoring him, many of the traps he's laid have been coated with various poisons, and satisfied that they're working, proceeds to begin the hunt. Turning to Illinois, we see Fred Duncan, who is surprised at Charles's resurrection, as the professor tells him of the Sentinel and that he wants to remain to study Ashley, when Mrs. Martin interrupts them for refreshments. Both decline as she insists that Xavier calls her Terry, and Duncan begins teasing him. Back with the X-Men, Scott checks that they can all hear Jean as Havoc claims that he'll never get used to telepathic talking, and Iceman says that's why he'll never be a real X-Man. Bitter at the statement, he calls Bobby out on leaving the team, and Cyclops steps in to try to stop the fight, but Jean intervenes and gives a sharp telepathic shot to the two hotheads. Calmed down, Scott is disappointed in Bobby, but ignoring the leader, he asks Jean if she knows where Beast is, but she instead notices Lorna looking vacant. Snapping back, she looks at the team as Scott asks if she would rather head back to the house, when Alex stands up for her, telling them that she can take care of herself, and Cyclops backs off, but warns her to be careful. Kraven watches Hank, fascinated at how agile he is when he quickly strikes from behind and, taking the advantage, easily lifts the oldest X-Man over his head and effortlessly throws him forward while bragging of his own strength. Beast, however, manages to grab a branch and swings around, allowing himself to hit the hunter hard while spouting that he's more than mere strength. However, Kraven easily retaliates, telling him that his attack was a little more than brute force when Beast realizes that the hunter's strike hit a nerve, numbing his entire arm. Knowing he can't show weakness, he hides the fact of his useless arm and, using his feet and free hand, grabs a string of vines, allowing him to encircle and tie up the hunter. Kraven, though, pulls free a set of knives, allowing him to cut the vines loose, freeing himself. Back with Havoc, he's lost Lorna, though didn't hear any signs of a struggle. He becomes worried that maybe Kraven snuck up and got her and yells for her. Jean is busy guiding Cyclops and Iceman to Beast when Bobby asks how Beast is doing, but she is unsure as she is having difficulty reading him. We then see Kraven launching himself at the hero, excited at his choice of prey, and bragging that there's one thing that he's always been better at than anyone else. Beast mocks him, but Kraven moves forward, telling his prey that he never hesitates to win. He then lets slip that the venom is working, and hearing this, Hank realizes what's been happening to him. Telling him that it was a mistake to mention the poison, he knows that it would be unwise to assume that they're non-lethal, and even though Kraven promised to spare Avia's life, with his own at stake, he no longer holds back. Turning to Jean, she yells for Cyclops, who wants to know why she's not using telepathy, and she tells him that there's no time, that they must break up the fight between the two combatants immediately. Hank is letting loose on the hunter, who is shocked at the results the Venoms are having. Unleashing a blast of energy from hidden weapons, he decides to escape. As he is running, though, Beast easily catches up to him and, grabbing his foot, throws him to the ground. Furious at Kraven, he begins to violently beat him to a pulp when someone shouts his name. He is then struck by Cyclops' optic blast and struggles against it as the mighty hunter begs for them to keep Beast away. Frantic, the hero is still trying to stop Kraven to save both Avia and himself when he collapses. Returning to the mansion, they are trying to decide what to do with him, as they can't take him to the police when Bobby says they can't just let him go. Kraven shouts that he kept his part of the bargain, and agreeing, Jean then moves to erase all his memories of them from his mind. With their solution found, Hank asks if Jean can do the same to him, as he is haunted by the memories of what he'd done. Berating himself for losing control and fearful that it might happen again, the others console and reassure him when Alex arrives calling his brother. Stumbling into the room, he shouts that Lorna is gone and that she simply floated into the air, drifting away.